All right, let's get straight to it. Tonight, we're not just looking at some numbers on a spreadsheet. No, we are launching an investigation. We're about to pull back the curtain on a crime that's happening right now, in the shadows, a silent heist that's siphoning trillions from the global economy. And our investigation, it all starts with one single, staggering number.
Here it is, our first piece of evidence, $337.3 billion. Now, that's not a company's valuation, it's not a country's entire budget. That is the amount of money lost to tax evasion in just one country in a single year. It's a jaw-dropping figure, and it points to a crime scene on a scale that's just immense.
And trust me, this is not an isolated incident. This is a global operation. Yeah, the United States might be leading the pack, but you can see Brazil and Italy are not far behind. We're talking hundreds of billions vanishing from their economies, too. This isn't just a few bad apples. It's a systemic bleed. It's an economic wound that stretches across the entire planet.
To really get how deep this rabbit hole goes, let's zoom in a little closer. 3,147 crore rupees. That was the average amount of tax evaded in India per year over a 15-year period. You hear that? The average. So from the world's biggest economies to the ones growing the fastest, the story is exactly the same. The heist, it's happening everywhere.
So, the big question is, how? How are they pulling this off? Well, to stop a crime, you have to get inside the criminal's mind. You have to understand their methods. And guess what? We've gotten our hands on their playbook, the sophisticated and sometimes shockingly simple techniques they use to make billions of dollars just disappear.
Okay, tactic number one is a classic. It's all about deception. The art of keeping two different sets of books. You have one set for reality, the one that shows the real profits, and then you have another carefully cooked version just for the authorities. It's simple, but it is brutally effective.
Now, tactic two. This is where things get a lot more sophisticated. We're talking about using the global banking system to create these loans that, well, they aren't really loans at all. It's a slick way to launder money, to make it look like you're just taking on legitimate debt. Keep this one in mind. We're going to come back to it.
And then there's tactic three, the one I'm sure you've all heard of, tax havens. Think of these places as financial black holes. They're countries where you can stash your income-producing assets, hide them from any prying eyes, completely off the books and totally out of reach.
Remember those artificial loans I mentioned? Let's break down exactly how this scheme works, because it's actually kind of genius. First, you take your undeclared money and you deposit it in a foreign bank. Step two, that same bank then loans you your own money back. You then pay interest on this fake loan, which, by the way, you can deduct from your taxes. And finally, you repay that loan with the money you hid in the first place. It's a perfect, self-contained loop of deception.
So we've seen the unbelievable scale of this crime, and we've looked at the playbook, but every single investigation has to answer the most critical question of all. Why? What could possibly be the motive for a heist on this massive global scale? Look, it'd be easy to just chalk it all up to greed. End of story. But the real answer? It's way more complex, so much more systemic. The reasons people decide to step into the shadow economy, they're actually woven into the very fabric of our societies.
It all really starts with a fundamental breakdown of trust. I mean, think about it. When you have no idea where your tax money is actually going, when government spending is basically a black box, that deal we all make as a society, it just starts to fall apart. And the motivation to chip in, it just vanishes.
And this breakdown, it's a two-way street. We pay taxes expecting things in return, right? Good schools, safe roads, reliable services. But when the government doesn't hold up its end of the bargain, people naturally start to ask themselves a very simple question. What am I even paying for? Now this is where it gets really disturbing, because it exposes just how deep the corruption can go. This isn't just people versus the government. The system itself can become part of the crime. A system where it's literally cheaper to pay a bribe than to pay what you owe in taxes. The very people who are supposed to enforce the law become the gatekeepers to breaking it. Okay, we've got the crime, we've got the methods, and we've got the motives. Now it's time to put all the pieces together. To crack a case this big, investigators use a specific technique to trace a problem all the way back to its source. So let's build our evidence board.
This tool is called root cause analysis, and it's basically a way to stop looking at the symptoms, the billions in lost revenue, and instead identify the deep underlying cracks in the system that allow this heist to even happen in the first place. We're looking for the disease, not just the fever.
So right in the center of our board, we have the problem itself, tax evasion. This is the main event. This is the end result of a long, tangled chain of causes and failures that we are about to unravel.
Our first evidence file. This is all about the taxpayer's point of view. So you've got people looking at incredibly high tax rates and a system that's so ridiculously complicated, it feels like it's designed for them to fail. They see corrupt officials and believe their hard-earned money will just be wasted or misused. All of that, it fuels this culture where dodging taxes starts to feel less like a crime and more like justice.
But that's only half the story. Evidence file B shows us the other side, deep failures within the institutions themselves. You have political leaders not paying their own taxes. You have their influence protecting other powerful people. All of this props up a huge underground economy. These aren't just cracks in the system, people. These are gaping holes that let this crime thrive.
The case is cracked. The evidence is all here on the board. It points to this complex web of personal motives and total system failure. So, what's the verdict? And more importantly, how in the world do we stop the heist?
While the investigation gives us a pretty clear counter playbook, a way to rebuild the system from the inside out. It starts with the obvious stuff, make the tax laws simpler and actually enforce the penalties. But it goes deeper. It's about educating people on why their contribution matters, getting government agencies to actually talk to each other, and setting up special courts to prove that justice will be swift and fair. It's a multi-pronged attack for a really complex problem.
So the criminal's playbook is wide open. The solutions, the path to fixing the system, it's all laid out for us. But the question that hangs in the air is there enough political will? Is there enough social trust left to actually put an end to the world's most profitable and maybe its most invisible crime? Will the heist ever truly end?